So in your marvelous review called Solve for X in the Claremont Review, one of the major themes works through a comparison of Frederick Douglass and Malcolm X. I thought I would introduce this famous quotation from Malcolm X about being an American, where he says, "No, I'm not an American. I'm one of the 22 million black people who are the victims of Americanism. One of the 22 million black people who are the victims of democracy, nothing but disguised hypocrisy." Now, you hold, as you say, hold out hope that Malcolm X would turn out to be more like Frederick Douglass than it may seem from this quotation. First of all, what about this?
You want to know how I can get there from that quote?
When you Douglass, talk about Douglass in America. We talked a little bit about this, but I think we could expand on it. Douglass was foursquare in favor, eventually, and even in his early years, you could say, he was in favor of the idea of America and of the blacks as possible members of an American polity. And he was even very much eventually in defense of Western civilization, Western literature, and a kind of liberating intellectualism and political freedom that he looked forward to. And all that seems foreign, doesn't it, to Malcolm X?
Yeah, I don't want to make this link between them too strong. Nonetheless, it does seem to me that the early Douglass, particularly the Garrisonian Douglass, you look at those speeches, just devastating attacks on the Constitution, right? A complete rejection of it. And that's not so far from the way in which Malcolm X is talking about America.
But he stays in America.
Yes, and in fact,
he doesn't go abroad.
Right, even in that early period, he is not a black nationalist. And there were early black nationalists, or those who argued for colonization, blacks who said, maybe the principles of the Declaration are right, but we are never going to be able to realize them for ourselves remaining in America, and we must leave.
What do you mean by colonization?
There were a number of people who were in favor of colonization. There was the American Colonization Society, which was a white organization.
Famous.
In favor of returning freed blacks to Africa. But there was also something called the African Colonization Society, which was founded by leading African American thinkers, also in favor of a black exodus.
And do we have any idea how popular that was among
I think
freed blacks?
It's always been a minority position, but it's a position that recurs periodically in African American political thought.
Marcus Garvey and
right. But Douglass really from the beginning really sets himself against that. He says we're here in America and we're here to stay, and the nation is going to have to figure out what to do with us.
Yes.
So yes, in that respect, big difference between them. In other respects also, Douglass's vision is thoroughly integrationist, probably the most integrationist of all of the leading black figures. He actually looked forward to a time in which there would be a composite American national identity. In other words, intermarriage would eventually produce a kind of new type,
Barack Obama.
A new racial type. That's right. Yeah. By the way, John Quincy Adams also sees this in the American future. So again, in that way, very different from Malcolm X, who is
a separationist,
a separatist. Nonetheless, it seems to me there are certain points of similarity, and especially maybe on the theme of manliness.
Talk about that.
And just this need for black pride, for standing up for yourself. There are some things that are not to be tolerated, and I actually here see that Malcolm X has some appreciation for the American founding and for this revolutionary tradition. So he's wrong in saying that the founding was white nationalism, right? But I think he does have a basic understanding of this sort of Lockean position, and that leads him on a key issue, namely the issue of civil disobedience, to be very critical of civil disobedience and of King's attempt to find a halfway position between sort of
revolution.
Between revolution and the thoroughly democratic ways of trying to change bad laws.
Right. Now, but you have to admit, Malcolm X kept odd company, or politically, or that he had strange bedfellows, considering that when he was part of the Nation of Islam, he was negotiating with the American Nazi Party,
Yes.
and with segregationists of the most diehard sort.
Because they shared a common notion that the races should separate. Yeah. So I mean, he does some things that he is later very. He laments that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he was driven to do that. That was really Elijah Muhammad, head of the Nation of Islam, who wanted that outreach to American racists. But I think you could say in a certain way that's true of Douglass also, right?
Really?
I
would have said...
No, not that, but that he is. Well, yes, actually, that he is involved with. He got involved with the wrong group at the beginning, right? With the Garrisonians, and there was a way in which the Garrisonians were in league with the Slavocrats. I think maybe I mentioned this in the review. I don't remember whether I do or not.
You allude to it.
The Garrisonians spoke about circulating the Southerners the Slavocrats spoke about circulating a work that had been produced by the Garrisonians, precisely because the Garrisonians were arguing for a pro-slavery view of the Constitution, and so were the Slavocrats.
Right.